Dragon's Dogma was one of my most played single player games in the last year, and after I 100% completed it, I still couldn't get enough, so I spent some time finding games in my backlog that can potentially scratch the same itch, at least until Dragon's Dogma 2 comes out. Problem is, with how unique the game is with its various combat options, pawn system, fashion, and exploration, it's quite difficult to find similar games that can give all those experiences the way Dragon's Dogma did. So, I instead tried out 5 unique RPGs that I felt had similarities to certain aspects of Dragon's Dogma that I thought people who have the same taste as me might enjoy. If you feel the same way, let's dive in, starting with Outward. Specifically Outward Definitive Edition, which is available on Steam and on most platforms. It's an open world action RPG that has survival elements tied into it, and let me tell you, this has been the most immersive adventure experience that I've had out of everything on this list. There's a mild story that you can follow right from the start, but the main meat and bones of this game is you exploring, dungeon crawling, and surviving in the wilds because you will need to manage stuff like hunger, thirst, and rest. Playing Outward reminded me of that initial feeling of the Arisen and Dragon's Dogma leaving Gransys for the first time, and the great thing about Outward is that you can do pretty much the whole game in co-op. The game starts off with you dealing with what is called a blood price. The tribe you're in put this upon your entire family line because of some ancestor, and so your character in the prologue goes on an expedition to earn money. The expedition failed, there was a shipwreck, and you're back in the village with 5 days left to pay 150 silver or the tribe's people will take your house as compensation. And that's pretty much what the setup is. You can now decide how you want to make money. You can just avoid it if you don't want to live in the village anymore, or you can find alternate ways to pay off the blood price. Outward gives you that freedom right from the get-go, and it is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's great for me because when we played, we just went straight outside after a small preparation and had a great adventure. We fought hyenas, bandits, we stole a lot of stuff from chests, and while exploring the map, we came up with 150 silvers just selling things off.
And on time too. I'm impressed.
We climbed the mountain looking for magic, somehow ended up under it, and while trying to get back to the village, a knight-looking dude tricked us into slavery. That's only about 7 hours of my playtime in Outward, and I love to see what more it has to offer. The bad thing is that I can totally see a lot of players starting this game and just feeling lost at the lack of direction. There is also a lot of jank, the combat's not good initially, and it felt like Dark Souls but incredibly unrefined. Once we got used to it though, and after getting magic and seeing what higher level combat looks like, it does become a lot better or bearable depending on how much jankiness you can tolerate. The map feels pretty empty too outside of the points of interest. In a sense, this also reminds me of Dragon's Dogma, but in a negative way. However, once you are in these points of interest, there's puzzles, unique layouts, genuinely confusing structure which required us to navigate with our lantern and remember routes that we took, and overall that was great fun. The big thing about Outward is that since it is pretty hardcore, the sense of accomplishment in this game is through the roof. Just getting access to magic took us a couple of hours and a bit of dying, but once we got it, I was pretty much hooked. If you're looking for an immersive hardcore open world RPG with survival elements, crafting, and all that fun stuff, you can't go wrong with Outward. Mount & Blade Bannerlord is a strategy action RPG where you can build massive armies and fight alongside your troops on the ground, and is available for most platforms except Switch. I know what you're thinking, this doesn't look anywhere close to Dragon's Dogma at all, and you would be right. But the reason I put it on this list is because one of the things I really enjoyed about Dragon's Dogma is the variety of options you have for combat. You have all sorts of weapons, vocations, and skills that you can fully customize to the point where you can have a very unique playstyle alongside your pawn. Bannerlord offers that as well with massive skill trees for combat and governance, but alongside massive sieges, 500 versus 500 army battles, and a combat system similar to a simplified For Honor. How the game goes is first you select from a variety of factions, each with their own unique bonuses in movement, troops, governing styles, and all sorts of stuff. For this playthrough, we went for Stordia as I wanted to create a Viking raider. You then create your character and voila, you're dropped into the vast world of Colradia, a land in the middle of civil war whose empire has split into 3 factions. Now, while there is a story in this game, the main reason people play Bannerlord is for its sandbox features that allows you enough freedom to tackle the world in any way you want. Once you're trapped in the map, the world is your playground. You can create the most terrifying band of bandits, literally hiring cutthroats and making them stronger, or you can become a vassal of the kingdom, leading knights in an honorable charge against your enemies. You can even literally conquer the whole world and chop off the head of anybody who opposes you, wiping out culture and kingdom one after another, and you get my point. There's also companions you can hire like pawns, you can get married, start a family, and build a dynasty that will last 1,000 years. Or you can even avoid combat altogether and just become the most successful merchant the world has ever seen. It also has a great modding scene and is available on Game Pass. If what you enjoyed in Dragon's Dogma is the freedom to be who you want to be, try out Mountain Blade Bannerlord. Dragon Age Inquisition is the third installment in the Dragon Age series of games developed by BioWare, the same developers responsible for the beloved classic Mass Effect. It's an action RPG first and foremost, but for me the best part of Dragon Age is the story, so let me give you a quick background. Inquisition's story takes place right after a major event in the game's lore. Templars and mages are at war, and they gathered in what is called the Conclave to try and finally set things right. Suddenly an explosion happened, killing important people from both sides, and the sky tore open, spitting out demons and monsters. After creating your character with a decent enough character creation system giving you race and class options, you emerge from this rift with a mysterious mark on your hand that is apparently capable of closing the breach in the sky. There's a lot of story to be had in this game, but for now that's all you're gonna get, as I don't want to spoil the experience, but you'll definitely be deep in not just fighting demons, but also the political side of the wars in Thedas will be front and center during your experience, forcing you to make hard decisions that will affect the world around you. Combat in this game is nothing to write home about. It feels like one of those hybrid action and tab combat MMOs, but it is satisfying because you can bring up to 3 companions with you for a party of 4, and you can also switch to these characters both outside and in the middle of combat. There's also a tactical mode which is similar to a more classic RPG combat, but I didn't really feel it was necessary unless you're playing on harder difficulties where tactics really start to matter. Another thing that makes Dragon Age Inquisition unique is the fact that you can make your Inquisition stronger by upgrading your base, recruiting people that you've helped in quests, and expanding your influence through the nations of Orlais and Ferelden. This can be done at the war table passively, or even better, you can travel to large semi-open world maps and be boots on the ground, exploring and doing quests with your party. There's also romance options in the game, which I feel is always a good thing in RPGs, in addition to dialogue options, which I kinda mentioned earlier. Overall, there's too much to unpack with Dragon Age Inquisition, and I feel that this one needs its own video. But if you like Dragon's Dogma and are looking for a game where you can create your character, adventure with genuinely interesting companions, do quests, explore, fight small and large monsters, and experience a really good fantasy story, it's hard to go wrong with Dragon Age Inquisition. It also comes for free with PC Game Pass. Monster Hunter Rise is the latest installment in the Monster Hunter series and was first released to Switch but was then ported over to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox later on. It's an action RPG developed by Capcom, the same developers as Dragon's Dogma, and basically what Monster Hunter is all about is hunting giant beasts with oversized weapons. If what you enjoyed about Dragon's Dogma is hunting the Griffin, bringing down Cyclops and stuff like that, this is something you might want to look into. I recently spent some time with Monster Hunter Rise, but I've dabbled in Monster Hunter World back when it was first released, and I've played Monster Hunter games way back in the PSP era, and let me just say, there's still nothing out there that gives me the same feeling as Monster Hunter Combat does. You have a large variety of giant weapons to choose from, each with their own unique mechanics, combos, and learning curve, but once you understand how your weapon works, the slow combat of Monster Hunter starts to really be able to flex, and you get these epic moments that you can't really get elsewhere. Not to mention the fantastic monster designs, not only in terms of look, but in terms of combat. Each monster fights differently, behaves differently, and are very dynamic in the hunting ground, allowing you to be very creative in how you fight them. They have their own sets of weaknesses and strengths, and not to mention that once you do defeat the monsters, you can also use their body parts to forge your gear, allowing you to mix and match your fashion while bonking the heads of large dragons. But my most favorite thing about Monster Hunter is the co-op, and it's the best it's ever been in Rise. Not only can you play together with up to 4 people, but you can also progress entirely with your friends as opposed to previous installments where you have to have already triggered cutscenes and such before you can hunt together. In Rise, co-op is seamless. You accept the quest, your friends confirm, you eat your dongos, and you're all set. There's easily hundreds of hours to be had in any Monster Hunter game you try, so if you're looking for a grounded, heavy, hard-hitting action RPG that focuses on boss fights, try out Monster Hunter Rise. Or any of the Monster Hunter games really, they're all quite good. Last but not the least is Kenshi, and again, like Bannerlord, looking at this game, it doesn't seem similar at all to Dragon's Dogma in any way. But if you've seen my playthrough of Dragon's Dogma, you'd know that I enjoy a little bit of light role-playing here and there, as well as creating stories for my pawns and characters. With Kenshi being the ultimate sandbox RPG, this game scratches that same itch. It is the game that gives you absolute freedom in how you want your playthrough to be. You can become a lone samurai, a warlord, a crawling piece of torso, or a cyborg and do literally anything. There's bases to be built, ruins and monster dens to be explored, and stories to be made with companions you meet and recruit along the way. That being said, the gameplay of Kenshi is a complete hit or miss. The combat system is an auto battle, there's zero stories, a lot of players may feel lost in the early game, and it is incredibly brutal in difficulty if you don't know what you're doing. If you go outside of town unprepared, even starving bandits will rip you to pieces for a chance that you might have some food on you. But once you get the hang of this game, oh boy, you're in for the best sandbox experience of your life. Just to give you an idea, on my first playthrough, me and my party were traveling to a place called Shobatai in the Great Desert. And our party has been together for a while, I'm like 20 hours in at this point, and suddenly, manhunters decided that we're weak enough to be taken down and kidnapped to be sold as slaves. Two of my buddies were captured, I escaped in the middle of the chaos, and after several grueling days being chased, I finally got everyone out. Fast forward weeks, we're laying low. We made friends with another escaped slave named Squint after we fought off the manhunters chasing her, and then we traveled all the way west to escape the slavers. Once our slave status went away from being incognito for so long, we thought, oh, this would be a great time to settle down. We have a decent party, good stories to tell, so maybe it's time to have a base. We went out one last time to get the last few thousand cats I needed, and while exploring an ancient lab, we were unfortunately careless and was captured by cannibals. After staging the most daring escape known to mankind, Squint broke her foot while the rest got away. We staked outside of the labs for days, waiting for our injuries to heal and rescue Squint once again, but suddenly we heard her screaming from the tower as she was chopped and piece by piece consumed by the cannibals left inside the labs. The day ended with an ominous notification: Squint is dead. Defeated and heartbroken, our party used all the cats we made to buy the house in honor of Squint and swore revenge on this particular group of cannibals. All of that happened in the game organically. I had no plan, I was just going with the flow, and this is just one of the many stories I have during my 30 hours in Kenshi. If you want a full video on this, let me know in the comments because I'd love to share it all with you. So, if you want the ultimate RPG sandbox experience, give Kenshi a try and see if it clicks with you as it did with me. Who knows, this might be the game you spend the next 300 hours of your life on. Hit that like and subscribe button if you want to see more, and also thank you to our Patreon supporters for making this channel possible. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.